Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. So November is Nonfiction November. This is a thing hosted by Olive from A Book Olive and Jenna from Nonfic Books, I believe is her channel name. I will have links to both of their channels down below. A couple of years ago, they started doing this thing called Nonfiction November where they just encourage people to read some nonfiction books over the course of November. It's pretty simple. As long as you read one nonfiction book, you have technically participated in Nonfiction November. But I love this idea a lot. I love nonfiction. I don't read it quite as much as I want to sometimes, but I love this idea of just encouraging people to check out nonfiction because I feel like nonfiction doesn't get quite as much love, at least here on BookTube. So yeah, I am definitely going to be participating. I have a handful of books here that I'm going to talk about that I may or may not read. We all know how I do with TBRs. They're just like suggestions. But one thing that Olive and Jenna always do is they put together sort of like prompts. So if you want to, you can follow the prompts, but you don't have to. The books here, some of them fill prompts, some of them are just nonfiction books that I'm interested in. So what I'm going to do first is go through the prompts and talk about different books that could potentially fill the prompts. So the first prompt is home, and you can, again, interpret these words however you would like. And so I have two books here that could potentially fulfill this. The first one is The Outrun by Amy Liptrot. I talked about this one in my Autumn Readathon TBR as a potential one to read for that. I didn't read it during the Autumn Readathon, so I figured I could potentially read it now. This is a memoir of this young woman who grew up in like a northern island off of Scotland. She moves down to London, something happens, and it forces her to move back home and to figure stuff out. That's all I really know about it. The other one that I have is River Rhine, I'm assuming that's how you say it, by Angela Palm. This is another memoir. This talks about Angela Palm's experience growing up in this rural town in Indiana. I don't know that much about it other than like she leaves Indiana for some reason, and for some reason she's drawn back to her small town, and I think it's just about like grappling with the town that she grew up in. Possibly. I'm really bad at knowing what books are about before I jump into them, but I know that those topics have to deal with homes in certain senses, so it works. So the next two word prompts that were given are substance and love. And it's funny because a lot of people with substance are doing things related to like drugs, I feel like. But when I heard the word substance, the first thing I thought of was food. And for me, food and love are very much intertwined. So I have two books here that could potentially fill like both prompts in my mind. The first one is The Cooking Gene, A Journey Through African-American Culinary History in the Old South by Michael W. Twitty. This one just came out this year. I think it just came out in like September or something like that. And I've been hearing really, really great things about this one. It's basically a nonfiction book that, as the subtitle says, goes through African-American cuisine here in the United States and specifically in the South, but it also, I think, is kind of like a memoir of Michael Twitty's life. And then the other one that I have is Hunger by Roxane Gay. This is a memoir slash essay collection from Roxane Gay. I've heard it's amazing and brutal and extremely forthright. Roxane Gay talks about her own issues with food and eating disorders and her own body. She talks very openly, I know, about her own rapes and sexual assaults that she dealt with in her life and how that sort of triggered various things that have to do with her body. And one of the reasons why I think it fulfills both the substance part as well as the love part, because I think that Roxane Gay talks about learning to like love herself and love her body and learning how to handle just sort of that trauma and sort of resolving her own sort of issues with food and loving herself. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be reading this one this month because I've been on the hold list for this one for a while. I've like had it on my radar as one I want to read. And so now that I have it from the library, I'm definitely going to be reading this one this month. And then the final word prompt that was given is scholarship. And so for this one, I think I'm going to read Washington by Ron Chernow. Ron Chernow is probably best well known for doing the Alexander Hamilton biography. Before he did that one, he did this one, which is a George Washington biography. I checked this one out from the library a year or two ago. I don't remember exactly. And the problem is that I didn't finish it in time, basically. And when I was reading the Alexander Hamilton biography, what I realized is, one, I need to read these as an ebook because they're so big and heavy that it's hard for me to physically hold them, and so I'm less inclined to pick them up. So if I read them as an ebook, more inclined to read it. The other thing is that I need to give myself as much time as possible. So my goal for this one, just read it every single day as my commute read for this month, and to get through like a minimum of 4% every day, because that will lead me to finishing the book off over the course of the month, because there's about 25 work days in this month. So yeah, that's my goal. I will be reading that one very slowly throughout the month. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you may have heard me talk about the fact that I want to read a biography for every single US president. This is still a goal that I have. It's like a lifetime goal for me. Like, it's not a thing I ever expect to do in like a year or even like 5 years, because these biographies are always like very dense and very thick, and they take me a very long time. And because I like variety in my reading, I can't read more than like 1 or 2 a year. But yeah, I need to keep going with that because I haven't done it in a while. So Washington, let's do it. And then the final book that I have doesn't fit into any of these prompts, but it's a book I checked off from the library that I really want to read, and that is The Brain Defense: Murder in Manhattan and the Dawn of Neuroscience in America's Courtrooms by Kevin Davis. This is a book that talks about, again, how neuroscience started being used in courtrooms. It starts off with the case of this man who like pushes his wife out of their like apartment window. He has like no previous history of any like violence or anything like that, so they weren't really sure like why he did it. And then they did like a CT scan of his brain, and it turns out he has a major tumor on his brain, in the part of his brain that deals with like judgment or something along those lines. And so this book, I believe, talks about how courtrooms and lawyers have started using neuroscience as a way of handling people's guilt and innocence. And I think it also talks about like how much of a role it should play in dealing with people's guilt and innocence. That's not really a proper sentence, but you know what I mean? So yeah, I have this from the library. It sounds really interesting. I really am excited to check it out. So there's a very good chance that this one will get read this month, just because I'm really intrigued by it. So yeah, those are all of the books on my stack. I don't think I'm going to be reading all of these books in the course of this month, but if I do, that'd be great. And especially because I do need some variety. I don't know if I'm going to read only nonfiction this month. We'll see how that goes, how I feel. Like maybe halfway through the month, I'm like, man, I really need a fiction book or something like that. So yeah, there's a chance of that. There's a chance I'll pick up something else completely. Who knows? Like I say, I never am very good at TBRs, especially month-long ones, so we'll see how this goes. So let me know down in the comments below if you are participating in Nonfiction November, and if you are, what books you have planned to read this month, or if you aren't planning on participating in Nonfiction November, I definitely encourage you guys to do so. Again, it's pretty simple. Just read a nonfiction book this month and you have participated, or, you know, the goal is just to get people reading more nonfiction that you would have normally. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching.